Hey guys, September was a great month for Android, don't you think? We had multiple flagship phones launched. Today let's take a look at a couple of them. The Galaxy Note 3 from Samsung and the G2 from LG. Let's pit these two against each other and see who comes out on top. Anyway, if this is your first time here or if you've just plain old forgotten, my name's Ash and you're watching C4E Tech. Let's get started. Let's start with the build. Both these phones are built out of polycarbonate plastic. On the G2 you've got a glossy back with a pattern there. This is kind of more susceptible to fingerprints and smudges. On the Note 3 you've got faux leather. This is still plastic nonetheless, but it is a little, it doesn't really attract fingerprints or smudges and looks a little better in my honest opinion. As far as thickness goes, the G2 is 8.9mm thick, the Note 3 8.3. The Note 3 weighs in at 168 grams and the G2 143. So as far as button placements go, on the Note 3 you've got your regular Galaxy button placements, you've got the volume rockers to the right, you've got the 3.5mm headphone jack, a secondary noise cancelling microphone, the IR blaster on top. You also have an extra microphone this time around over here, the power button to the right. At the bottom, your primary microphone, the speaker, the S Pen, and a micro USB 3.0 port. So this is backwards compatible with existing micro USB 2.0 cables, but using the micro USB 3.0 cable will get you better data transfer rates as well as faster charging. On the G2, you have no buttons on the sides. You only get your micro SIM card slot to the left, a micro USB port at the bottom, the speaker, the 3.5mm headphone jack, and this is because you've got your buttons on the back. The backwards facing buttons are pretty good. Use it for a week, you're gonna get used to it. It's very simple. The power button you see here is also surrounded by a LED notification light. That's pretty good. At the back, both these phones have 13 megapixel rear cameras with LED flash. On the G2, this camera also has optical image stabilization. On the other hand, the Snapdragon variant supports 4K video recording. We'll talk more about this a little later on in this comparison. On the front, you've got another LED notification light. On the G2, a LED notification light here. On the Note 3, the earpiece, sensors, a 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera on the G2, a 2 megapixel front-facing camera on the Note 3, both capable of 1080p videos at 30 frames per second. On the Note 3, you also get an extra IR sensor over here. This allows for gesture-based controls. We'll talk about it in the software part of this video. Low below, there are no keys, no capacitive or physical keys on the G2 because the G2 resorts for on-screen keys instead. On the Note 3, you've got your familiar menu and back keys with the physical home button. So the display, it's a 5.7-inch Super AMOLED Full HD display on the Note 3, a 5.2-inch Full HD IPS display on the G2. So while both phones are built out of plastic, the Note 3 does offer you with a user replaceable battery, a 3200 mAh user replaceable battery. You also get a micro SD card slot here, and both of these aren't available with the G2. I also think it's worth noting that while theoretically yes, the base variants of both devices ship with just 16 gigs on board, but in most regions it's the 32 gig variant of the Note 3 that's available, and that's not really the case with the G2. A flagship phone with 16 gigs on board without micro SD support is a definite no in my opinion. When it comes to specs, both these phones have a lot in common. Both phones are powered by the Snapdragon 800 chipset, which houses 4 Crate 400 cores clocked at 2.26 GHz each, coupled with an Adreno 330 GPU and 2 gigs of RAM for the G2, 3 gigs for the Note 3. There is also another variant of the Galaxy Note 3 that utilizes the Exynos 5420 chipset. This houses 4 high-powered Cortex A15 cores clocked at 1.9 GHz each and 4 low-powered Cortex A7 cores clocked at 1.3 GHz each, coupled with a Mali T628 MP6 GPU and 3 gigs of RAM. As far as synthetic benchmarks go, as you can see, the Note 3 edges out the G2 in most benchmarks, and I am using the Snapdragon variant of the Galaxy Note 3 here. Call it benchmark manipulation, call it the extra 1 gig of RAM. The fact here is that both these devices are extremely powerful and you'd be hard pressed to find anything that either of these cannot run. And when it comes to real day-to-day performance like say gaming, like I said, there's absolutely nothing that either of these devices can't run. Again guys, both these devices do tend to get a little warm from time to time. It's nothing serious and definitely within acceptable levels. So now let's talk a little bit about the display. The 5.2-inch Full HD IPS display on the G2 gives it a pixel density of 424 pixels per inch. The 5.7-inch Super AMOLED Full HD display on the Galaxy Note 3 gives it a pixel density of 386 pixels per inch. The differences in pixel density aren't something you're gonna notice unless you're looking at the displays under a microscope. Both displays are extremely sharp and clear. While the Super AMOLED display on the Galaxy Note 3 accounts for deeper blacks, the IPS display on the G2 counters with higher brightness levels. The viewing angles on the Galaxy Note 3 are a tad better. Despite the screen on the G2 being brighter, the display on the Note 3 is better visible under direct sunlight. On a looping video playback test, the 3200 mAh user replaceable battery on the Galaxy Note 3 took a little over 13 hours to discharge fully. On the other hand, the 3000 mAh non-user replaceable battery on the G2 ended up lasting for a little over 11 hours. While the Note 3 does definitely come out ahead, either phone shouldn't have any issues getting you through a full day on a single charge even with heavy usage. Moving on to the software. While the Galaxy Note 3 runs the latest version of Android 4.3 with Samsung's custom TouchWiz UI on top, the G2 runs the older but still pretty recent version Android 4.2.2 with LG's own Optimus UI on top. Both manufacturers stray pretty far from Google's stock Android experience. The focus seems to be more on loading the phones up with features rather than flash. Let's first start with the G2. In case you aren't a fan of the G2's rear keys, not to worry, LG lets you wake the device by tapping the screen twice. The volume buttons also double up as shortcut keys to quickly launch the camera or memo when the screen's turned off. The UI is also very customizable, allowing you to choose everything from the unlock effect on the lock screen to the transition effects between home screens and even the function and layout of the on-screen navigation keys. For multitasking, LG gives you a ton of options like the floating Q-Slide apps, slide aside, and a very handy clip tray to move information between apps. The G2 also provides you with a guest mode. Set it up and when you unlock the phone, enter the pattern meant for the guest mode and you enter a home screen where only a pre-selected set of apps are displayed. Turn off the display, re-enter your normal pattern to get back to your own home screen. Moving on to the Note 3. The Galaxy Note 3 is a big device, no arguments here. Samsung seems to realize it too, as they've added a ton of features to ease one-handed usage. You get Samsung Knox for enhanced security. We also find most of the features that we saw with the Galaxy S4 earlier this year like gesture controls and air view make their way over. The star of the show undoubtedly is the S Pen though. Hitting the button on the S Pen while hovering over the screen launches air commands. From here you can do a variety of stuff like taking notes, saving stuff to your scrapbook, or launching the pen window. This is similar to the Q-Slide apps that we saw on the G2. Multi-window has also been improved this year. Most commonly requested features like the ability to add the same instances of two apps or copy data across windows have been added. As far as media consumption goes, both video players can run 1080p videos great and come loaded with a ton of functionality. As far as the audio output goes, the Galaxy Note 3 is a little better than the G2, both when it comes to output via earphones as well as the loudspeaker. Overall, while the UI on both devices seem fast, snappy and stable, the G2 does feel a little quicker in hand. Make no mistake, the Note 3 is the most lag-free of all devices running Samsung's TouchWiz, but the G2 does feel a little snappier. Let's talk a little bit about the camera now. Both interfaces are loaded with tons of similar options like 360-degree panorama, best photo, burst mode and others that are pretty self-explanatory. Both devices also support shooting simultaneously with both front and rear cameras. The major difference between both is the fact that the G2 has optical image stabilization, whereas the Galaxy Note 3 counters with 4K video on the Snapdragon 800 variant. Under well-lit conditions, the G2 does a better job producing more natural colors. Under low-lit conditions, surprisingly despite the G2's optical image stabilization, which should lead to longer exposure times, the Note 3 actually strikes back, producing a better image. The flash on the Note 3 is also noticeably stronger. When it comes to video recording, the G2 ends up overexposing things like the trees to the right. So guys, in conclusion, while the G2 does give the Note 3 a run for its money, ultimately the Note 3 does win out, but not by much though. So if you're in the market today and are looking to buy a device with a display that's around 5 inches, you will not go wrong with the G2. You wouldn't have to push yourself to get a 5.7-inch display, a Note 3 with a 5.7-inch display, if that's not what you're looking for. But if you're torn between these two devices, I'd personally recommend the Galaxy Note 3. That is me though, so what do you guys think? What would you choose given the choice between the Note 3 and the G2? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you guys do want to pick up either of these phones, you can do that from Amazon.com. I'll leave direct links right below the like button. So I guess that pretty much wraps up this comparison video, guys. Hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. And if you guys do have any video requests for me, or if you just want to stay updated on my latest videos and updates, feel free to hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. The direct links to all my social networks can be found right below the like button as well. So once again, that's pretty much it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys soon in the next one. Till then, this is Ash here from C4E Tech signing off. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye now.